I hope you guys can see and hear me. I have no idea. I changed the plan. It had knocked me back to a free plan, and so now. So what am I doing? Exit. So what do I? Forgive me. Oh, you know what? I bet I have to do this. There we go. I hope you guys can hear me. My mic's on. Forgive me. I went through a little hardship, and so they took me back to the free plan. I just re-upped it, and so it's behaving a little differently. Happy Sabbath, everyone. Brother John, House of Spiritual Israel. I haven't been on in a while, so at least, and I could do a whole lesson, but I'm not going to this late. But I did want to at least pop in and say Happy Sabbath. We're still here. We're still doing the job, and and just give you a little explanation of what we've been up to lately and a little testimony. And actually, I'm really encouraged. I feel an urgency is coming about. I think we're really getting up against it, and it's not just me; it's other people I speak with as well. And I often say I don't believe in coincidences or accidents, and I think everything means something and is for a reason. So when other people start talking to me and I'm experiencing similar things, um, it's for a reason. So it seems like time to a couple things, to really do the work, rededicate myself to it, and these opportunities are coming about. So a few weeks ago, maybe three now, four, I preached in Atlanta, near outside of Atlanta in Conyers, Georgia, at the House of Light Ministries. My brother Joel baptized me 8, 9 years ago, and it was a real pleasure to do that. I haven't talked to him lately. I hope he didn't give him much grief for having a Gentile preach, but the fact is, I'm not a Gentile. I was born that in the flesh, but now I'm part of the Commonwealth of Israel, and he's got the right spirit about that. And so it was a wonderful experience. Went through some drama because I'm a knucklehead, but really enjoyed it, and it was very fulfilling. So I get back here, and some worldly stuff has happened lately that has prevented me from getting on for the last couple of weeks. Specifically, I have two daughters, both pretty much grown, but the elder is special needs. She has autism. She's a great kid. She'll charm you to death. But one night, I guess it's been 2 weeks ago, she went out to dinner with her grandmother and her aunt. And was really hungry, ate a lot, and then started getting sick, and like all night long. And then she was okay for the day, and then the next day, repeat. So I took her to urgent care. They initially treated it as a bug, and they said, but if she's not better in 36 hours, take her to the ER and let them do some imaging, what have you. So she wasn't better. In fact, she was looking worse in some ways. They'd given us some medication for the nausea, but she just didn't look right, and took her to the ER. They did all kinds of tests. Turned out she had a gallbladder infection, and she ended up being in the hospital about 5 days, 6 days. But they did a surgery last Sabbath day, and it did not. 6 days ago already, I guess so. Maybe it was Sunday. I think it was Saturday. It didn't go right. Somehow the liver, because gallbladder is right next to the liver, it was very inflamed. So he said there's two options. We can remove the gallbladder, or we can install a drain to get the infection out. The drain can either be a temporary measure or permanent if you don't want to remove it. Most people have it removed, and my ex-wife and I were inclined to do the same thing. But when he got in there, somehow the liver began to bleed profusely, and so he installed the drain, and then dealt with the bleeding. And so now we have this wait period where we have to make sure she doesn't pull on the drain, do anything like that, and we have to make sure we care for her. And life's changed a little bit, so those things are what these worldly things. And I knew God had it the whole time, but these are the things we've had to contend with, and it's the things that have been keeping me away from my job, which is preaching the gospel. But other things are coming about where it's very encouraging because the Lord's at work, And I'm always encouraged when I see the Lord at work in my life. And one thing about this faith, one testimony I will give is this isn't something where it's a blind faith and you never have any sort of encouragement. When your understanding has increased exponentially above what it was, you had nothing to do with it, or there was a supernatural force involved. And when you start having prophetic dreams, you read Numbers 12, the Lord says basically, hear now my words, if there be a prophet among you, I think that's what he said, I, the Lord, will appear to him in a vision and speak to him in a dream. And so these are the ways the Lord will deal with you. Now, I've never had really any visions, but I've had prophetic dreams, and then they come to pass. And one of the questions I always ask a physical Israelite, if they're not aware of, who they may be or where they come from, one of the first questions is, do you dream? And I never explain what that means. But these dreams, when you have them and then something comes to pass, it's a special deal, right? So, and they'll say, yeah, I do. That's a very good sign that you're one of his. And so that's always encouraging when that sort of thing happens. Recently, an Israelite had a dream, and he just said, I had a feeling I needed to ask you about this. And the Lord sent him. And recently, another brother, and this all makes sense, I hope, in a minute, said he's had this strong feeling that he and I are supposed to be doing something like a Bible study. Now, we had a live deal going when I had the other house. We had basically a ministry in it. We had people coming every Sabbath, a reader. It was very good, and it was growing, and then COVID hit. And since then, I've been basically a one-man band here, which is okay because I'll do the job for sure, but the fellowship piece has been lacking. That's why it was so encouraging and rewarding to go to Atlanta. And now it looks like I'm going to start doing this at least once or twice a month. It's Bible study with people coming, and we'll see what happens. We'll let the Lord grow it as he will. But then there's another thing that I'm going to start doing. I'm not ready to announce it yet. So I think, I'm going from no fellowship with live people to, at least two different scenarios where there will be a lot of fellowship and opportunity to teach live and in Bible study, Q&A, and things like that. And I'm very encouraged that the Lord is still using me and putting me in a position to deal with his word and see him working in other people's lives, and the Lord giving me enough understanding to help explain what's happening. Why am I feeling this? Why is this? Well, this is part of what you go through. And, for anyone who's really the Lord starts dealing with, there's two ways you can react, right? So the first way, you can have the faith of Abraham or be cut in that mode, right? So the Lord says, Abraham, he says, here am I. Never has to do a bunch of explaining, asking, convincing. Lord says, I want you to do this, whether it's move away from all the people you ever known to a land I'll tell you. Not even tell him where he's going yet. Abraham gets up early next morning, starts packing. Or you can be more like Jonah, right? Where he said, Jonah, I want you to go to Nineveh and tell them, they need to stop messing up. He then ran away and tried to get on the ship and escape this obligation he had to God. And you can be inclined either way, but you're going to end up doing the job. It's just the way it is. And, I remember years ago when I was still assisting the Catholic priest. He was from Ghana, and he was married to a woman from Ghana, and they called her the church mother because she's the head priest's wife. And so he was teaching me. I would do sacraments. I'd participate in the readings, the liturgy. I did mostly all the readings, the liturgical stuff. I worked out of the sacramentary with him. I guess my role was treated much like a deacon. I could do a lot of things. I could even do some of the sacraments solo. I would run the church solo if he was like out of the country or something. So through this training, I remember one day she turned and looked at me and she said, Brother John, you going to be a priest? You want to be a priest? And I literally said, heck no. I didn't want anything to do with that. It was too much responsibility. It was beyond me. I wasn't ready. I wasn't trained. I wasn't whatever. Well, that's kind of this brother I know and love. I think he's more inclined to that. And I was more inclined to the Jonah style. But But actually, one of my favorite parts is I think it's Isaiah, where where he says, "Who shall I send?" And he just says, "Send me." So the Lord's granted me a spirit of service, and that is very encouraging with these opportunities come about. And so I'm encouraged, and I'm glad to be working more very soon. And as we can announce stuff, we will certainly do that. And I did have a lesson for tonight, but like I said, I think it's too late. And I want to just tell everyone where I've been and share a little bit of this testimony and what have you. I really sense. I think the sense is that things are coming about. A lot of things are going on in this world, and some of the themes that I've been sharing, like our lesson Revelation 13:2. We have to understand who's in charge of this world, this physical world, and we have to understand what the tools of this physical world will be able to do for us, which is very little. Why is that? Because Paul tells us we're fighting against principalities, spiritual wickedness in high places, and it's absolutely the truth. It's not this government, this party, that party. The whole deal, the rulership of this earth, Revelation 13:2 tells us, gets their power, position, and authority from the dragon. Revelation 12 tells us who the dragon is, names all his titles, that old serpent, the devil, and Satan. So we can't turn to a government and look for righteousness. We have to look to the only source of righteousness, which is God. And it's incumbent upon us to have faith in him. So, and now the stakes are becoming dire. The time is getting short. Now, I don't know when these things will kick off, but I know some of the things to look for. And we talk about that in some of our lessons. I know I'll be getting nervous when that new temple starts getting built. Why would they build a new temple, John? Well, they got the plans. They've got the priests are in training. They found a red heifer, or two or three, or what have you. They've got all the instruments made, and they're starting to practice the ordinances of the high days and what have you. So they're in training over in the land. Now, the lesson, coincidentally, I wanted to teach tonight, and I'll probably teach next week, is going to be called Israel Exiled and Forgotten. Now, what kind of title is that, and what does it mean? Well, if you read Deuteronomy, specifically Deuteronomy 28, it prescribes blessings and curses for Israel. And blessings if they kept his commandments and were obedient, curses if they failed to. You go to Daniel 9, and it will tell you how that turned out for them. And this was one of the quandaries I always had with the Bible, because the Bible is very clear, and this lesson points that out, of what would happen to Israel if they didn't keep the Lord's commandments. They would go back into captivity, this time on ships, Deuteronomy 28. And when they arrived at their destination, which would be all corners of the earth, they would be sold as male and female slaves. And this God, we have another lesson called God is a God of signs. We don't need watches to understand when things happen, or calendars. It's real simple with God. When the sun sets, a new day has begun. When it gets springtime, that moon right around there, that's your new year starting. So you don't need a calendar or a watch. It doesn't start stuff in the middle of the night, middle of winter. But the point being, if he's a God of the signs, and he is, then we just look to the signs. So we go, did a people come here on ships, and when they got here were sold as male and female slaves? And then I remember I get these images conjured of auction posters from the 17 and 1800s for male and female slaves. But that's just one sign. There's a series of signs, a series of characteristics prescribed to Israel. They would be, and this is not in each individual, this is as a nationality. They would be the most impoverished. And in association with that poverty, they would borrow only and not lend. So they wouldn't be bankers. They wouldn't own banks. They would be always on the borrowing side. They would be the most imprisoned. So this is a people robbed and spoiled. They're hidden away in prison houses. And they would be the most murdered. There's another one, and there's a few other ones. But one of the key ones, which if it makes the Bible a lie, if it's not the case, is that they would not return to the land until Jesus himself returns and leads them, takes them there. And it says this over and over and over in the book. And that's what this lesson's about. So if they're back in the land, as the world tells us, then that's how they get licensed to say, oh, it's liturgical poetry. Oh, it's spiritual themes. It's not supposed to be literal. Well, when I came to understand who Israel was, then I knew that everything in this book was accurate. All prophecy, 100% accurate. Yes, there's spiritual themes. Yes, there's a lot of wisdom and guidance and knowledge, but there's also a history of a people, a family and a people. And there's prophecy of what's going to come to pass. But how could this be? How could they be? We not know who Israel is? Well, it's real easy. I will go to the Bible one place. Let's go to Deuteronomy 32. This is what God would prescribe would happen. Because after he gave these, you have to remember God's omnipresent. He's not affected by time. So he sees everything in the eternal now. So he knows how things are going to turn out because he's looking at it in real time. So if we go to Deuteronomy 32, he's what he's sharing with Israel. This is Moses' final address to the nation, but it's chock full of prophecy and other things. He knows what choices will be made and the outcome of that. And he says the following. He talks about, if you read early, and he talks about how he found Israel and nourished Israel up into, he loved Israel, nourished them up into a great nation. They had it going on. They were prosperous. They were mighty. And if you read, starting in verse 15, it says, and he'll call Israel by many names. He'll call them by a tribe name. He'll call them by sons of Jacob. He'll call them by the name Israel. Here he calls them by Jeshurun. He says, but Jeshurun waxed fat and kicked, meaning kicked against the authority of God. Thou art waxen fat. Thou art grown thick. Thou art covered with fatness. Then he, who's he, Israel, forsook God, which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. And that means they provoked God. It tells us he's a jealous God with strange gods. See, he's a spirit bank. So his bride is the church. But if you cheat on your husband, we're supposed to be his bride. You don't do it physically. You do it spiritually. So if we start pursuing other gods and forsaking him, then we are cheating on him. That's adultery, right? So that's what he's talking about. When Israel continually started going after these gods of the nations and idols and what have you. And he said they provoked him to jealousy with strange gods, with abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not, right? So we drop down to 19, it says, and when the Lord saw it, he abhorred them because of the provoking of his sons and of his daughters. And what did the Lord say in verse 20? And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be, for they are a very forward generation, children in whom is no faith. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities. And this pertains to me and why you will find someone born of the nations preaching his word. He says, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with the foolish nation. So one of the reasons, I don't know, is when I meet him, but one of the reasons he granted understanding to me, born of the nations, is in fact to provoke the Israelites to jealousy at times. Because primarily they are his witnesses, as the book says. They are not only a church, but they're a people. So, and it's not always received well when one of the nations, originally born of the nations, gets granted understanding. I used to be very careful about how I would address this. But now I just say, I got to do my job. He granted me understanding. I didn't have anything to do with that. It wasn't any special intellect I possess. So when you see him and you meet him, you ask him about that. But the fact that he granted me this understanding means I have a job to do. It moved me to this spirit of service. And if not, if I don't support that, then I'm displaying my own lack of faith. But then he says something else that's very important. He says, 26, I said I would scatter them into corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. So the fact that the world has forgotten who Israel actually is, actually they had help. And Rome went around saying, oh, these are the Israelites. Speaking of like King Herod and his people. So when you come to understand that those people in the land are not Israelites, and that God knew he would make them to be forgotten, even from themselves, even within themselves, although a remnant in every generation has retained that knowledge, then if you believe the book and have faith, then it's not such a stretch to say how this came about, right? As it was prophesied. So once I learned that, I learned that this is accurate through and through. Now I have an obligation to preach the word, because I really sense that it's getting late in the game. It's getting late in the game, and I'm not the only one, like I said. So we got work to do, and I'm kind of encouraged, more than kind of, I'm encouraged that things are coming to pass, and it's beholden on me to work this vineyard. That's my job. So apologies for not being on lately. I wanted to check in and say hello. I'll tell you a little bit about this lessons coming. I've been writing more lessons lately. I have, the Lord's helped me with lessons in the past, but it's important that, certain topics, after a while I go, why don't I have that lesson? Because I always talk about this concept, this being one of them. Why haven't I made a lesson? Well, that's what we're doing. So just wanted to say happy Sabbath. We are participating in a Bible study tomorrow. I don't think it'll be online. We'll see what happens. And then more to come, more to follow of more official type scenarios. But just wanted to come in and say happy Sabbath to everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. Please reach out. I don't have the right background. Let me change the background so you guys can. No, that would actually. Give me a second. Buono momento. Virtual background. There you go. I think you can see that now. So if you reach out, we are at spiritualisrael@comcast.net, 240-543-4554. If I don't know you, I probably won't answer, but leave a voicemail or just text me. We're on Facebook. We have the church site, House of Spiritual Israel. I have mine, John. It's facebook.com/John.Pappas, PAPPAS.583. We're on, I don't actually know the URL, but we're on YouTube, House of Spiritual Israel. You'll see the arms line of Judah as our logo. So please reach out, please follow. If we at all, you think there's any value in other people who are just learning about the faith, especially if they're of the nations, please share the URL, share our site, encourage them to contact us. But we will be doing more in live scenarios, which is very encouraging. And again, I loved being down at House of Light. That was a wonderful experience. It's just, this thing's about communion and fellowship, and the Lord, in addition to speaking to us in dreams and visions, he will speak to us through people of faith and of good heart. Just how many times have I've been pondering or dealing with something, and I end up having a conversation, and whoever I'm speaking to raises something that's directly correlated to what I've been dealing with. That's, and again, not believing in coincidences or accidents. That's how God will talk to us often through people, through his words, certainly. So it's just encouraging for me. I'm a little bit re-energized. Sorry I haven't been around, but I have been around, and we'll be doing a lot more in the future. So please have a great night. We will be next week this time. We'll be doing lessons, maybe on before that, and reach out if you have any questions or greetings, and have a happy Sabbath. Peace in Jesus' name, everyone. Talk to you soon.